Ever wondered why Danes genuinely relish their solo moments, whether it's curling up with a candle and a book or embracing cozy silence? In this video, we'll uncover how solitude links to well-being, purpose, and Denmark's unique cultural values. Many people struggle with alone time, feeling restless, guilty, or even lonely when they're not surrounded by others. But in Denmark, solitude isn't seen as a problem. It's actually considered a vital part of happiness and balance. So why is it that Danes can embrace alone time with joy, while in many other countries, people feel uncomfortable or even anxious when they're by themselves? Sustainability and green energy. Viking heritage. Welfare system. New Nordic food. Welcome to Denmark Explained, your front row seat to the hidden gems, quirky traditions, and powerful stories that make Danish culture truly unforgettable. When people think about happiness, they often imagine big celebrations, lots of friends, and constant activity. But in Denmark, happiness often begins in the quiet moments, spending time alone. What might feel uncomfortable for some is actually a treasured practice here. So why is being alone not seen as lonely, but as something deeply positive? Let's dig into the idea of solitude as self-care. Research shows that more people report feeling lonely today than 20 years ago. In fact, surveys reveal that loneliness has doubled in some groups. At the same time, Denmark remains in the very top of the world happiness rankings. That sounds like a contradiction, doesn't it? Here's the twist. Being alone in Denmark doesn't automatically mean being cut off. Instead, it's often a conscious choice to recharge, reset, and feel comfortable in your own space. Think about the simple act of lighting a candle and reading a book at night. To outsiders, it may seem small, but it's a cultural ritual. These quiet moments are seen as nourishing, like a pause button in daily life. And here's something interesting. We'll come back to this later. Danes actually burn more candles per person than anywhere else in Europe. Now, here's another layer. Studies show that when people take time to be alone in a mindful way, their stress levels drop, and their sense of calm increases. Scientists have even measured reductions in cortisol, the stress hormone. In other words, alone time isn't wasted time. It's a health tool. But let me ask you, when was the last time you allowed yourself to just sit quietly without feeling guilty about not doing enough? For many of us, silence feels awkward. For Danes, silence feels safe. And safety is key. People here grow up in a society built on trust, so being alone never carries the same sense of risk or social judgment that it might elsewhere. Another curious point. Studies of daily life show that Danes often spend 2 to 3 hours a day in solo leisure activities. Reading, listening to music, or simply being at home. And here's something we'll loop back to. More than 80% say they make a point of creating cozy moments every week, whether alone or with family. So the secret isn't avoiding people. The secret is knowing how to balance connection with solitude. In Denmark, that balance is not just normal, it's celebrated. And in the next part of this video, we'll explore why the entire culture and social system actually supports this choice of alone time, instead of making people feel guilty for it. But before we move on, let me loop you in on something pivotal about Danish culture that reinforces this love for solitude. When we talk about spending time alone, it's not just a personal choice. It's shaped by the society you live in. And here's where Denmark stands out. The culture actually makes solitude feel safe and respected. Think about this. In most countries, only about 3 in 10 people say they trust strangers. In Denmark, that number jumps to nearly 3/4 of the population. Imagine walking through a city where you know most people believe in honesty and fairness. Doesn't that already make being alone feel different? And it's not only about trusting strangers. Surveys show that over 80% of people trust their government and even the police. That kind of confidence in institutions creates a safety net. When daily life feels secure, choosing to spend time on your own doesn't come with fear. It comes with freedom. Now here's a detail worth pausing on. Denmark has some of the lowest income inequality in the world. The gap between rich and poor is much smaller than in most countries. Why does that matter for solitude? Because equality builds dignity. When you don't feel constantly compared or left behind, you can focus on enjoying your own space without pressure. Let's connect that to work life. The average work week here is about 37 hours, shorter than many other countries. In global surveys, Denmark ranks number 1 for work-life balance. That means more time for leisure, family, and yes, personal time. But hold that thought, because later we'll see how people actually spend those extra hours. Freedom of choice also plays a role. More than 9 out of 10 Danes report feeling free to shape their lives the way they want. That's one of the highest scores in the world. When freedom is guaranteed, solitude isn't forced, it's chosen. Here's another interesting layer. Around 7 in 10 people say they feel strongly connected to their community. At the same time, 9 in 10 feel safe walking alone at night. That combination, community trust and personal safety, removes the stigma of being alone. Instead, it becomes normal, even healthy. And let's not forget education and social support. Denmark invests more in these areas than most of Europe, ensuring that people feel secure about their future. Life satisfaction scores reflect this. On a scale from 0 to 10, Danes rate their lives at 7.5, compared to the European average of 6. So here's the takeaway. When society gives you trust, equality, and safety, solitude transforms. It stops being something scary and becomes something empowering. And in the next chapter, we'll see how this trust in society extends beyond homes and cities, into nature itself. I've introduced how Danes use solo time as cozy self-care and why their culture supports it. Now, tell me, which would you prefer to experience when spending time alone? Option A. Quiet reflection with candles and a good book, true Hygge style. Option B. An outdoor solo wander, embracing nature and solitude. Drop your choice in the comments. I'm curious which resonates more. Planning a trip to Denmark? Or maybe you're moving there soon? Don't just Google your way through it. Let DenmarkExplained.com be your shortcut to a smoother, smarter, and way more fun experience. At DenmarkExplained.com/products, you'll find itineraries, ready-made plans that turn confusion into unforgettable days. eBooks, packed with local insights, cultural tips, and everyday know-how. No boring history lessons, just stuff that actually helps. Expat guides, moving to Denmark? Get the info you wish someone told you before you landed. Everything's digital, everything's simple, and everything's designed to make Denmark feel less confusing, and way more cozy. So skip the stress, and get the guides that explain Denmark, clearly, cleverly, and in plain English. Check it out now at DenmarkExplained.com/products. Your trip, our tips, let's make it amazing. If you're finding this perspective fresh and helpful, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, share, and leave your answer to the question above in the comments. Let's continue exploring another intimate Danish embrace of solitude, the outdoors. When people in Denmark choose to be alone, it isn't always indoors with a book or a candle. Often, it's outside, in nature. And this connection between solitude and the natural world explains a lot about why being alone is not only accepted but enjoyed. Here's a striking fact. Almost 9 out of 10 people live within a 15-minute walk of a park, forest, or beach. That kind of access makes stepping into nature effortless. And the majority actually use it. More than 70% of the population spends time in nature at least once a week. But why does that matter for solitude? Studies show that time in green spaces lowers stress, boosts creativity, and helps with self-reflection. In fact, researchers discovered that children who grow up close to nature have over 50% lower risk of mental health problems later in life. That's not just about exercise, it's about the restorative power of being in a quiet, natural environment. Think about this. One of the most popular TV programs in Denmark is about survival in the wilderness. Over 800,000 people tuned in to watch participants test themselves alone in nature. It's fascinating because it reflects how the wider culture values solitude as growth, not isolation. People connect to the idea that being alone outdoors can teach resilience and clarity. And here's something we'll circle back to: cycling isn't just a way to get to work. More than 9 out of 10 people own a bicycle, and many use it for quiet solo rides, not just transport. It's movement and meditation at the same time. Even schools are part of this story. Denmark is one of the pioneers of forest schools, where children spend much of their learning outdoors. Sometimes that means wandering alone, observing, and reflecting. In other words, solitude in nature is taught as valuable from an early age. The workplace supports this too. Over 60% of employers encourage outdoor breaks, and the most common leisure activity for adults is walking. More than 80% report walking weekly, often alone. That shows solitude in nature isn't limited to weekends or holidays. It's woven into daily routines. And here's a key point. Nearly 1/5 of the land is protected for nature. That ensures people will always have spaces to go when they need calm. No wonder surveys show that almost 8 in 10 feel happier and more balanced after being outdoors by themselves. So here's the bigger picture. Solitude in Denmark isn't just about staying at home. It's about stepping outside, finding peace in green spaces, and treating nature as a partner in well-being. And in the next chapter, we'll look at how you can bring these same practices into your own life, wherever you live. Now, let me show you how to transform your everyday with these Danish solitude secrets. Now that we've explored how alone time is embraced indoors and in nature, let's talk about bringing it into daily life. How small, intentional moments of solitude can transform well-being. One of the most visible signs of this culture is candle use. Denmark has the highest per capita candle consumption in Europe, about 6 kilograms per person per year. But this isn't just about decoration. Candles set a calm, reflective atmosphere that encourages slowing down. And here's the thing. This small ritual is more than cozy lighting. Studies show that simple, mindful routines like this can significantly reduce stress levels. Reading is another daily habit that supports solitude. Around 86% of adults read regularly, often alone, turning pages as a way to escape the noise of daily life. Imagine finishing a busy day with a favorite book, letting your mind wander and reset. Over 65% of people dedicate at least one evening per week to similar reflective activities at home, showing that personal time is prioritized, not neglected. And it's not just reading or candles. Many people unplug from their phones and computers at least once a day. This deliberate disconnection allows for deeper focus, creativity, and a sense of calm. Over 70% of adults spend 1 to 3 hours per day on personal hobbies, cooking, crafting, gardening, often alone. These aren't trivial moments, they are small daily investments in mental health. In fact, research shows that taking intentional alone time daily can reduce stress levels by 20 to 30%. That's substantial when you consider how much modern life bombards us with distractions. It also improves focus, mood, and even sleep quality. And here's something interesting. More than 70% of adults say their home is the most important place for rest and identity, far above the European average. This highlights how the environment itself supports meaningful solitude. Even outdoor activity plays a role. About 78% of people take solo walks each week, blending exercise with reflection. It's a simple habit, yet it reinforces a daily rhythm of calm and mental clarity. Meanwhile, 60% report successfully balancing personal alone time with family life, showing that solitude and connection can coexist seamlessly. And the results speak for themselves. Surveys indicate that individuals who practice regular, intentional alone time routines score an average of 7.8 out of 10 in life satisfaction, compared to 6.9 for those who rarely take such time. It's proof that these practices aren't just cultural quirks, they have measurable effects on happiness. So whether it's a candle at evening, an hour with a book, a hobby, or a quiet walk outdoors, integrating alone time into daily life is a powerful tool for mental clarity, balance, and joy. And as you explore Denmark, or consider living here, these habits are easy to observe, adapt, and make your own. Thanks for watching. I'm so glad you stayed with me. If you'd like to explore more about Danish culture, well-being, or life in Denmark, click on the playlist to your right for more videos. See you in the next one.